Yo, what's going on, everybody? Sorry, I've had a little bit of issues today. Trying to figure some stuff out here. My YouTube, my Twitter, all the fun stuff is not working out correctly here. But we're finally settled it down, and we're gonna finally talk about the aggressive day the Orioles tried to have. They were successful in landing one pitcher, and they were unsuccessful in landing another. And we're going to kind of talk about it. And let's kind of dive right into it. So I'm going to kind of give you my little thoughts on it, and we'll dive right into drunk Uncle Jeff is what I'm going to call him. This is what I would look like if I was pitching at like a family reunion on a late Sunday afternoon here, just swaying back and forth on the mound here, and just throwing Ched. Ched past the kids more than likely. But that's what Andrew looks like. Andrew Kittredge here. So he's one of the better relievers in baseball here since 2019. He brings a lot to the table for the Orioles. It's an exciting time to get a guy like this, a guy who gets ahead in the count very early. He throws a lot of first pitch strikes. He's a 72% clip first pitch strike. League average is about 61%. So we're getting a late inning bullpen arm that's going to come in, and he's going to command the zone, and he's going to command it early. And I'll be dead honest with you, he's got a pretty devastating slider. It only seems to work against right-handed pitching, though. I mean, right-handed hitting. But we'll get into that a little bit. But to kind of kick it off, this is his baseball savant profile. When you first look at it, you're like, cool. Like this, what is this? Like, nothing really jumps off the charts outside of the chase rate. But what makes him so good? Fastball velocity is pretty average. He'll run it up to 97 sometimes. The pitching run value is a little above average. The fastball, the breaking ball, for as good as this slider is, for his breaking ball to only have a 2 value is pretty incredible to me. But the whiff rates, all this stuff, slightly above average. But what makes him so good? And it's definitely got to be the slider. But what I found, right? So this is what he throws when he throws the slider to lefties. It gets hit around a little bit. They hit 277 off of him, and he hit 7. The 7 home runs came last year off the slider. 4 of them came from left-handed hitters, and as you can see, a couple of them he left up here in the middle of the plate. That happens in baseball. You're not going to be perfect every single time. That's okay. That's not a big deal to me, but what I like about it is I like and dislike this graphic too. And I'll kind of get to why here in just a minute. But it looks like, he keeps the ball down to lefties, but that's not always good. Lefties like the ball down, and sometimes if you to me, so his arm slot is coming from a little bit over the top. We'll say very, very slightly sidearm. It's not enough to call it sidearm. But this ball is more than likely just kind of going up like this. And his slider to righties bites. So, and I'll show you here now. So look at the difference for a right-handed hitter. Most of the balls are ending up in the left-hander's batter's box. So what I don't like about looking at the left-handed graph, is the ball's down. The ball's not in. So a lefty is going to watch this ball just loop, and they'll follow it all the way in. And as you can see from them hitting 277 against him, they follow it in just fine, whether it's sharp or not. So I made a video earlier. His release point is the exact same as the fastball. The slider to a righty bites into the left-hander's batter's box, where the fastball can actually run up underneath the hands of a righty. As a right-hand hitter, it's really hard to hit this guy because balls come from the same spot, and you're looking at about a 2-foot difference of where this ball ends up sometimes. But a lefty just sits there, and they just get to watch it, and it's easy to hit. If he would take some of these pitches that are ending up here on the outside half to righties, and you can see they're not as down, if he would end up some of those sliders against lefties, kind of start the ball in the middle and let it run at their knees, they're not going to make as hard as contact. If a ball goes straight up and down like this, they're going to follow it in, and it's an easy swing for a left-handed hitter. I'll be dead honest with you. This guy's been successful in his career. I'm sure he knows things like this. He may hit lefties if he threw it with the way I'm saying. I don't know. That's something for the Orioles that they got to figure out. But I feel like that 277 clip gets a little lower if you can kind of get that loop out of this slider, because it comes more of like a 12-6 curve without a sharp bite. The way that he released this to a lefty here, when it drops straight down, it's more of a 12-6 curveball than it is any kind of a slider. What he's throwing to righties, that's more of a slider, because that ball is moving across the zone. It's moving away from their body, and it's got a sharp bite. So it looks like a fastball, and at the last second, boom, it's gone. Yeah, I feel like if he can make that adjustment and throw this ball where it's ending at lefty's knees, basically, one, they're going to jump out of the box, and two, they're going to put a soft swing on it. It's very hard to hit a ball coming right at you, especially when you think it's a fastball. You're gearing up for 94, 95, 96 that he can touch, and then it's like an 89-mile-an-hour slider with movement. And we're talking, I mean, a plate is what? We're talking 9, 10-inch late break that he could provide to left-handed hitters. I mean, that's a big deal. But the up and down stuff, it's really easy for a left-handed hitter, and I'm left-handed myself. You see the ball very, very, very early because it's coming across his body, and you get to look out that way with your dominant eye, and you get to just watch it the whole way in. And if it's up and down, it's so easy to pick up. But when you're kind of throwing it and it's running into the knees, we can't get the hands in on that. It's really hard. And why it's so effective against righties is they're looking for something that looks just like a fastball, and it's not their dominant eye that they're tracking this ball with. It's right on right, and it looks like a fastball. The spin is tight and stuff, and all of a sudden it's gone. It's got that same 10-inch movement at the very last second, and you're swinging through air. It's real hard to hit. And is my Twitter working, guys? I don't know if I can't tell if there's any kind of chats going on here on Twitter. So if somebody's on Twitter and you don't mind just saying, hey, just so I can make sure this is working, I would appreciate it. Chris says, no crab cakes for Hoffman. We're going to get into that. If Elias, we get a top of the rotation starter like Castillo and make the Orioles that much better. Maybe. I mean, Castillo is, I wouldn't consider him a top of the rotation guy. Castillo is, I mean, when you look at a lot of the rankings right now, the top 50 rankings, Castillo is a guy that is ranked behind Zach Eflin. And a lot of people have Zach Eflin kind of ranked as the Orioles ace. Maybe by default, but Grayson Rodriguez is the guy. Grayson right now is currently ranked the 25th best starter in baseball. Eflin is ranked, I think, the 46th, and then Castillo was the 47th. So, I mean, Dylan Cease is more comparable to kind of Grayson, and then Eflin is kind of more comparable to Castillo. Castillo, I don't know. Castillo helps. I'm not going to say he doesn't help. He helps, but he's not that frontline guy. All right, so Twitter is working. I appreciate it, Joe. Cool. Appreciate that. But I do like him. I do think he helps. It would just have to be for the it would have to be for the right price. Mark says most lefties like the down and in pitch. Yeah, so I mean, Mark's left-handed too. I've played softball with Mark before. The down and in pitch, yeah, and I think that's what we kind of see here is the down and in. And I feel like if we can kind of get that ball above the knee and in, that's a harder pitch to hit. A lot harder pitch to hit. That would make him a little bit more effective against left-handed pitching in my eyes. And what I wanted to look at here, so this is his fastball,
Kittredge comes
right?
in.
And when you're looking for a slider here, I wish I could slow it down. I can't. When you're looking for a slider, right, and the ball runs in underneath your hands, it's hard to hit. Very hard to hit.
That's exactly what will happen. Kittredge comes in.
So that ball runs, and that ball probably only had 5 or 6 inches of run, right? So nothing spectacular. But then when you watch the slider, right, coming from the same arm angle, and it's down and away, we're looking at what, 20? That was what, 20 some inches a run? Baseball Savant has him, I think, a 32-inch run or something like that. But either way, imagine looking for a fastball. This is Tyler O'Neill. We know Tyler doesn't hit the greatest against righties. So, I mean, that's in a thing of it itself. But just looking at the bite of this, and imagine two balls coming out of the exact same location, right? Exact same location.
And a swing and a miss at a breaking ball.
And one dives away. Is there a way that I could let me see if I can open a full-on window on Twitter, because I have the breakdown on my Twitter, and if it'll let me do it, I'll play it, and you can kind of see the breakdown then. We'll open it. Entire screen, Chrome tab. Let me just make it its own tab. Which one is it? Maybe this one. All right. So does it give me any kind of audio? No. Actually, you know what? I'll do this. I'm sorry, guys. I will upload it here real quick. We'll do a local video. I want you guys to be able to see it, because it's pretty incredible.
How good is Andrew Kittredge's slider? Man, let's take a look.
And a swing and a miss at a breaking ball.
So I want you to watch that again and watch his release point and watch where the slider goes and watch where the fastball goes.
So this is what I want you to pay attention to. It literally comes out of the same spot right here. And I freeze frame both sides, right? So the arm angle is at the same spot. That level line is where it comes out. Look at the difference in both of these balls. That's hard for a right-handed hitter to hit, man. This guy's
so
going to be pretty good.
now you know why he's been one of the best relievers since 2019.
This guy's going to be pretty good. So this is also his pitch frequency page. And I kind of like this too. And let me see if I can find a way to make this a little bit easier for you guys to read. So heart of the plate, 69% of batters actually swing at the ball inside the heart of the plate. The heart of the plate's this little purple thing over here where it says +1 runs. Major league average is 74, so 5% less. People are swinging at the ball in the heart of the plate, and a lot of that is probably his slider. He throws the slider like 47 to 49% of the time, so you know it's coming, and sometimes you still aren't swinging. And it represents itself here, a 31% take in the middle of the plate. League average is 27. So 4% of the time more, they're watching a ball in the dead heart of the plate. It's funny you say this, Brooks. Because I noticed several different times when he throws the fastball, he has a slightly different arm angle and a slightly different leg kick. I actually had to edit that video up pretty good to get that to kind of match up correctly. But I picked up on that really, really quick, and I'm hoping the O's pick up on that too. So the shadow is considered, still a meat zone, but more of a hard hit rather than a home run. 39% take, and league average is 47. So that is more of an essence of his slider as well. They're not taking that very much. They're swinging at it 61%. No, nobody was on. 61% they're swinging inside of this little purple, or what is that, like an orangish, peachish area. And then the chase rate. So 35% swing outside of the zone. It's considered a chase. 12% higher than major league average. And a lot of this is literally just the slider. The fastball is okay. It's not the greatest in the world. It's got some run to it. but it gets hit hard. I'll be dead honest with you. The changeup, same thing. It gets hit hard. So there's room for this guy to get better than he already is. It's not easy to come into a new org and they say, hey, we see this, let's change it. The guy has to be willing to do that. You would hope that he would, obviously. But that's a whole nother thing in itself. But I like what I see from this guy so far. The stats have been pretty good. I pulled some numbers against him and what he had done previously against like the AL and whatnot. And they were pretty interesting when I found them here. Let me go back and look. So I already kind of touched on his first pitch strike rate, which is really good. So, all right, so he gave up 10 home runs last year. 7 of them were to the slider. 4 of those obviously being left-handed hitters. 20 walks to 67 Ks. Had a pretty high ground ball rate, which is great. An 82% left on base ratio. So when he's coming in with runners on, 82% of the time he's slamming the door. That was probably one of the bullpen best if he was on our team last year. So he appeared in 18 innings, 20 games against the AL last year and pitched to a .96 ERA, so a sub-1 ERA against AL teams last year. In the 8th and 9th inning, he had about 46 innings. He had a 1.98 ERA. So to me, that speaks out as a setup man. I don't have the most confidence in the world as Cano as a setup man as I did maybe we'll say in like 2023. I feel like his ball is kind of flattened out a little bit. So I feel like you kind of take him out of the pressure situation now. Let him battle Dominguez for that 7th inning role. And we have some options, which is really good right now. Cano in the 6th or 7th. Perez in the 6th, 7th, or 8th, depending on, if there's multiple left-handers in the lineup. You've got Kittredge here who could go 7th, 8th, or 9th. If Felix is a little tired, you got Felix who would be in there to the 9th. Dominguez can kind of take over the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th. Like there's some flexibility here now in the bullpen. It's not just the same 2 or 3 guys that are going to pitch every single night in the same kind of rotation. That's going to help us a lot, especially for a guy who's coming off. He had Tommy John in 23, and he came back out and had 74 games this year. And we know Brandon likes to use the bullpen this way. So 70-ish games in our bullpen is good, and it'll take some stress off Cano, take some stress off of Batista, and a little bit off of off of Dominguez. So being able to kind of shuffle that around. So I think we can all agree last year, and most of our problem is we didn't really have too many high leverage guys. And if Cano was down that night, man, we were really hurting, right? Because then you had to rely on like Brian Baker or Birch Smith or Matt Bowman. Keegan Aiken didn't get a whole lot of time out in the lates, but he got a couple here and there. This year now, we don't have to worry about maybe a struggling Gregory Soto. And I didn't even get a chance to even talk about Soto yet. Like Soto can eat in some of these, 6th and 7th. It all depends on matchups. And that's what's really going to play well now for Brandon Hyde is to be able to have the matchups. Now, talking about matchups too, we'll get into this Jeff Hoffman situation. And Hoffman could have presented a whole new set of opportunities in the bullpen. So the Orioles reportedly agreed to a 3-year, $40 million deal for Jeff Hoffman, and the dreaded Baltimore physical struck again. Not that it's a bad thing. When they pulled their offer on Grant Balfour, it worked out in Baltimore's favor. When they pulled the offer from Dexter Fowler, I would say that it kind of worked out in Baltimore's favor. And look, and I'm not saying just the very next year, right? So these were multi-year deals, and these guys didn't play much longer after that. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on Jeff Hoffman. It was reported that he had issues with his throwing shoulder, and he's had previous issues with inflammation and whatnot. talking around to some former players and stuff that have played with the Orioles and played in other organizations, the Orioles do have the most strenuous physical in Major League Baseball. They go a little above and beyond what other teams do to look for injuries and or general soreness that may lead to an injury. And what I mean by that is they will come in and they'll put you in weird positions. They'll lay on you in certain ways and to make sure that, if you're a pitcher, that your arm bends and it's not kind of restricted either by, scar tissue or just lack of, flexibility or mobility in the arm. They really, really, really go in depth to look for certain things. And if one little thing pops off, they pull their offer. And they're not afraid to do it. And look, it's worked out fairly decent for them so far. I'm not going to sit here and wish that Jeff Hoffman has an injury just to say the Orioles were right. Let's just hope that the Orioles were right and Jeff Hoffman is healthy too. I don't want to wish an injury on a player just to make the Orioles right in this situation. But, if he decided to go another way and the Orioles decided to go another way, like, hey, so be it. I have no hard feelings towards Jeff Hoffman whatsoever. We just hope and pray that the Orioles made the right decision and this guy doesn't come out and, have a sub 2 ERA all year and 35 saves or something like that for Toronto, because that would just be terrible. But 3-year, $40 million for Jeff Hoffman was the Orioles offer, and he settled for 3 for 33 or something like that with about $6 million in incentives, getting about 3 for 39. Couple things excite me about that though. One, the Orioles weren't done. Some people early this morning after Kittredge signed thought the Orioles would be done. The Orioles could be done in the bullpen. They could be. It all depends on how aggressive they want to be. This team is good right now. A great bullpen. There's some upgradable arms in this bullpen. Definite upgradable arms. And if they go into the season what they have right now, it's a strong bullpen, and they're going to have some ups and downs. They have guys that can eliminate the ups and downs and replace them with really good bullpen arms and make this a stout bullpen. It depends on how aggressive they want to be. And for them to throw 3 for 40 at Jeff Hoffman kind of proves to what I've been saying is they want to be aggressive in this bullpen, and they see the same things that me and some others see, that there are upgradable pieces that they're willing to just eat some money on and get a better player. Now, I like Cianel Perez. Don't get me wrong. I think if they go into the season and we have to use him, I think he gives us a quality season. But at $1.2 million, I'm going to look you right in the eye and tell you that he's an upgradable player, and they're not afraid to eat that money and go and sign an AJ Minter. You don't have any room right now, even on the 40-man for Kittredge. You didn't have room at all for Jeff Hoffman, and they still made the offer. They are looking aggressively to upgrade this bullpen right now, in my opinion. So keep an eye out on Tanner Scott and AJ Minter, Tim Hill, if the Yankees keep dragging their feet. Excuse me. There's players here that are upgradable in this pen that's going to push the Orioles over the top here in 2025. Let's see. Getting some engagement going here. The Orioles offer 13 a year. Why can the Orioles get Tanner Scott back? I think, Mark, I really think Tanner Scott's going to be in between that 18 to 20 range, in my personal opinion. Yeah, I could see 3 for 60 for Tanner Scott, to be down honest with you. And you might have to overpay Boston, because that's the range that Boston's going to be in, and Boston's the front runner for him right now. You might even have to go like 3 for 68 or something like that for Tanner Scott, 3 for 70. You're going to have to overpay for him if you want him. And adding a high leverage lefty that takes the spot of Perez, so to say, might be Aiken too. I don't know. But let's just think about hypotheticals here. Late in the bullpen, you have several guys right now: Kittredge, Dominguez, Cano, Bautista. And then you throw Tanner Scott in the mix, which Tanner Scott wants to close. I don't know if he would come here because I don't think he's going to be the closer, but we'll see. But hypothetically, let's throw him in there. And you've got Freddie Freeman. We'll say we're in the World Series, right? Freddie Freeman and Ohtani and somebody else up before Mookie Betts. And we'll say 3 of the 4 guys coming up in the lineup are left-handed. We're just hypothetical in here. You're going to go with probably Tanner Scott over Felix Bautista in the 9th inning. And think about it. Like, what a luxury it might be to have to flip-flop one night when you can kind of game plan the lineup and use Felix Bautista in the 8th because it's kind of right-handed heavy and Tanner Scott in the 9th. And then the very next day have Tanner Scott in the 8th and Felix Bautista in the 9th. And or somebody else, depending on who's sore. Like, the flexibility that a high-leveraged lefty brings this bullpen is incredible. And I really hope the O's take it serious and try to upgrade it. And Jeff Hoffman kind of proved to me that they are looking to do the upgrades. The Orioles may have wanted to turn Hoffman into a starter as well. And then when you kind of look at it like, okay, we found some structural damage in the shoulder and this guy wants to start and it's only a 3-year deal. And what if he misses a full year? And, we kind of wasted our money. And I'm not mad at the Orioles for pulling that offer. Kittredge wouldn't have been signed. They failed physical. That's very true, Chris. They probably knew about the failed physical prior to signing Kittredge this morning. The Orioles keep everything quiet. So that's a very good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because I completely overlooked that. Kittredge may have been plan B. And when Hoffman's physical failed, they probably had a meeting this morning trying to figure out what to do. And it may have been a collective thing as, hey, let's go sign Kittredge. That's a good point, Chris. Thanks for bringing it up. The Blue Jays can pick up. So some teams don't have the same kind of requirements to pass a physical as other teams. And Baltimore is one of the hardest ones to pass. Some teams, you could come here and fail your physical, and another team's just going to say, I don't care. We'll keep you healthy. It's their confidence. And look, a 3-year deal, they may look at it as we've got 1 year to win this. And if you can give me 1 year and you're hurt year 2, I don't care. But next year they lose Bo Bichette and Vlad. I think Gossman's coming up soon, or he's got a couple more years left. But I think Barrios is a free agent after this. Chris Bassett's a free agent after this. So they may look at it as, look, if I get 1 year out of this guy and this is our time to take a shot and we're going to try it, I don't think they care. They're not looking at year 2 and 3. I really don't think they care. A lot of people don't look at the game like Mike Elias does. Mike looks at year 1, 2, and 3, and he tries to make sure he gets the best value out of the deal. It may or may not, and more than likely is, why they miss out on certain players. But look, it's a thing to remain to be seen. If he goes out and shoves it in Toronto, we're all going to be pissed. And if he comes out and has like a 4.6, 4.7 ERA, and he's struggling and he's up and down with shoulder inflammation all year, give Mike Elias his flowers at that point, right? Agreement meeting made at 12 in the morning makes more sense over the next. Right. They may, yeah. It's another good point. That physical may have come back pretty late in the afternoon or pretty late in the night, and then they called over and Kittredge agent and they said, "Hey, let's get a deal done now." It makes a lot of sense. They knew about this physical probably well in advance, and to speak on that, right? So the Orioles, look, they operate in silence, and I understand the fans get a little upset about this. And they want to hear that, they're in and stuff like that. And we haven't heard about anything about Sasaki. No one heard a thing about Kittredge. No one heard a thing about Morton. No one heard a thing last year about the Corbin Burns thing until basically it broke. They do operate in silence. And I think they take a page out of the Ravens book with it. And the Ravens are pretty silent in what they do too. And I don't think it's a bad thing, in my opinion. I think they like to just call around. Look, you don't want to tip your hand. You don't want to show your cards. You don't want other teams knowing who you value and who you like. And a lot of that is so you don't lose your guy. If it gets out that, oh, we're signing Jeff Hoffman to 3 for 40, or, oh, the Orioles are interested. Like, well, guess who gets reinterested and then restacks the price back up? Toronto, Boston, New York. That's why the whole Tim Hill situation in New York has been pretty quiet. You don't hear anything in the mainstream media about it because New York doesn't want it to get out. They don't want the price that they're trying to offer him to get out because somebody will beat it. So it's not a bad thing that Mike Elias is going to sit here and kind of operate these ways in silence. And it's just sometimes you just got to sit back and wait. It's hard to do, and I get it. And we're all waiting for that big splash. We're all waiting for that first tweet to come out. Man, it's hard as shit. But it's just this is how these guys operate, and so far it's been pretty effective. I mean, I've only had minimal complaints about what they've done so far, and this will be another one. Yeah, so look, let's touch on that too. Not even about Romano, but just the fact that Philly needs bullpen. They got rid of some guys that they didn't feel like could help them anymore, in Soto and Dominguez. And then they struggled really bad after they traded those guys. And Hoffman was a staple for them, like an absolute staple. And they weren't interested in bringing him back at the price that he wanted. Now, are they just trying to lowball him? Or did they know that, like, okay, this guy might have some issues and he's not worth the money that he's going to ask for? Maybe they knew about the shoulder and they were trying to see what other team was dumb enough, and then they would offer him later, But I'll always look at that when a guy does well and the team still doesn't want him back. And that's a very little red flag for me normally as why. How are you so effective? How are you so popular? And yet the team doesn't even want you back. That was a big red flag for me with Jeff Hoffman. But it's pretty interesting. I mean, same with Romano. Wasn't the greatest in the world with Toronto last year, but he's still a very good pitcher. And for them to kind of just let him go, another red flag thing. Now, does Philly signing Romano that early? Did they really know that Jeff Hoffman had a bum shoulder, so to say? And if they did, again, that's another one of them things that teams work in silence, and that's just how it works. Pre brings up a good thing here about Carlos Estevez. I mean, he's still got a lot left in the tank, and he's a very good arm. He could help this team. I don't want to have too many right-handed arms in the bullpen. This team is pretty right-handed happy. Lefties like to hit righties in our ballpark, and I don't know. I'd like to have a lefty at this point. I made a little list earlier. Tanner Scott's obviously my number one. I'd like to take Tim Hill number two. I had Jalen Beeks on here. I did not realize that he had signed or was claimed. But AJ Minter, Ryan Yarbrough, Wandy Peralta, and Caleb Ferguson. Now, Ferguson I have down in the 7th. I like the guy. He's cool. We could do better. Yarbrough's an interesting guy. He started off really slow, ended off really good. And he's got experience in the AL East, got experience in high leverage situations. I'd like to have him. Wandy Peralta kind of got himself fixed up in San Diego, started throwing the ball a lot better. He's an option. And these are guys that I just feel like are maybe a tick better than Cianel Perez. And again, it goes back to is how aggressive do you want to be at becoming a better bullpen? Tim Hill obviously is a much better player overall than Perez. Perez is still good though. I mean, if they have to roll into the season with Perez, that's more than fine. Could have been his problem. Yeah, that's very, very true. There could be a number of reasons of why certain things happen, but it is what it is. I'm excited personally about Kittredge. I would love to kind of compare some of his numbers last year. And I'm going to see if maybe I can, we'll just share, was it screen share, Chrome tab. And that will be kind of, I'll see what I'm looking at here. So I like to go in here and compare some players normally to what we had. So we'll put in Kittredge. We'll put in Cano. Then Dominguez. I can't really think of anybody else. Perez, maybe Soto. We didn't really use anybody else a whole lot that I could be confident in, but I don't know. Oh, Mark, so I must have missed that. 90% is the lowest effective slime the club has been missed. Oh, Jordan Montgomery. Sorry. I must have missed that one. I would take Jordan Montgomery. I think he's due for a bounce back year for sure. Yeah, I mean, Santander, if the Orioles wanted him, he would be here right now. Dead honest. If they wanted him back, he would be here right now. I think they're fully ready to move on with Heston Kjerstad. I feel like they value him as a better player right now and long term, and they're ready to roll with that. They may have. I don't even know if they made him an offer. We know they move in silence, but I really don't even know if they have made him an offer at all. Birdland says, "Am I forgetting Felix?" No, I'm not forgetting because he didn't pitch last year. I'm trying to compare everybody against each other. Will Smith, Will Smith is fine. I mean, he's fine. I'm not, whatever. Not impressed with Kittredge. Kittredge is really good. We've been kind of going over for a little bit. He's really good. They still have room for Tanner Scott though. They still have room, and I'll throw him in here, and we'll kind of compare everybody together against certain things and see if anybody likes anything. So Tanner obviously had the lowest ERA. Kittredge was just a little bit tick higher. Cano still fairly good. Soto and Dominguez, weren't all that great. Let's take a look from like August 1st on. So we'll just consider this the second half. Kittredge had a 1.99 in the second half. Scott with a 2.73. Cano with a 3.86. And then Dominguez with a 4.58 and Soto with a 5.09. I like to look at averages too. Kittredge had a 2.12 against him. Dominguez 2.34. He ran into some bad luck. He gave up a couple of home runs. He gave up obviously 6 home runs, but he also ran into some bad luck too, some duck farts and whatnot. But Tanner Scott at 2.57. So there's a lot of different things you have to look for when kind of evaluating just on a numbers basis, evaluating pitchers. Another thing that I really like to look at, obviously, K percentage is nice. So Cano still strikes a lot of dudes out. Tanner Scott obviously does, got a good fastball. Kittredge doesn't. He's a put you in play kind of thing. He strikes you out with the slider a little bit. He throws it almost 50% of the time, so it's coming. So it's a little easier not to strike out against it, but it's more soft contact. The FIPS were fairly decent. And the XFIPs were also fairly decent. I mean, anything above or below 4, I considered fairly decent. So hard contact. Tanner Scott obviously was the best. Cano still pretty decent. Kittredge at a 27, I still think is pretty respectable. Now the pull percentage here. So Kittredge, and this is hard. It's really hard when you got a guy who's throwing the ball right at your hip. And it's running away from you almost 30-some inches to pull it. So that 32% doesn't shock me whatsoever. Everyone says we should tie Tanner Scott. Maybe it's a Corbin Burns thing. Maybe he doesn't want to be here. I just think it's money. It's just flat out money. Boston's in the $20 million a year range. We're going to have to beat that. That's all it's going to come down to. It's just money. I don't think he cares where he goes. So yeah, Kittredge. Same with the Oppo here. Kittredge at 18.5. I like that. Guys aren't just driving the ball the other way against him either. How would I sell Baltimore to a player and the player's family? That's a good question. It's a really good question. If I was to sell Baltimore as a franchise, right, I'm gonna lead with the history. We all know this is one of the best teams in baseball, and from the 70s through the 90s. Who were the Yankees wanted to be. This was a good team for a long time. In the 60s they were good, in the 70s they were good, and then we were the model franchise for a while. So you start with the history, and then you tell them how you want to get back to that point. You point to the statues, you show them pictures and whatnot, and how you want to add more players to that legacy of Baltimore. And then I also look back at hey, look, you've got guys like Dempsey that want to stick around here. Guys like Jim Palmer that have been here forever. Al Bunbury has stuck around, and Boog Powell, Chris Hoyles. The guys that come here and they have successful careers, they stay. They stay in the city. They stay around the fans. The franchise itself is so well loved and respected, and I lead with that. We all know that it's a shitty place to stay and hang out and stuff like that at night. But who cares? You're not going to live in Baltimore City. Let's be real. You're going to live outside the county. You're going to take a 20 or 30-minute drive. That doesn't bother anybody. Anybody can move. Or if you're even looking for a place to stay, you already kind of know in your mind where you're going. That doesn't bother anybody. You got to put a package together, though, right? And you got to lean with, obviously, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, and Colton Cowser, and Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holiday, and you speak about the youth and how you build off of their success at such a young age. And you kind of go from there. Look, there's some negatives about Baltimore, obviously, and what they've done in the postseason and the city and around the stadium. I get it. There's a lot of positives here, too. Baltimore's got some of the best food around. They've got some of the best fan bases around. The Ravens and the Orioles are spoiled to have fans like ours. Now, you're going to hear people bitch and complain, they can't sell out or they sell their tickets. And look, I don't give a shit. I really don't. This town loves this team, and they're passionate about it. And that's fine. It's really fine. There's people that are still negative about this team. And you know what? That's fine, because it all stems from passion. Everyone here, you and me included, wants the Orioles to win a World Series. And they will go out and scream and be as loud as they can and break decibel barriers in outdoor stadiums just to see their team win. You don't find that everywhere. When the Nationals won their World Series, their fans cheered. Cool. It's different when you have passionate fans compared to just rich businessmen. It's different. Dodgers fans, passionate. Philly fans, passionate. Most Yankees fans, although they couldn't even tell you where the hell a stadium even is, what state it's in, they're still passionate about their team. Yeah, I don't think location is a huge issue. It was only an issue with Corbin Burns because he had the ability to see his family. Now, hypothetical, if they had a chance to sign Alex Bregman, and Bregman had to choose between Baltimore or Boston or Toronto, I don't think location would mean a shit to him. I don't think he would think about crime outside the stadiums. He doesn't give a shit. It's they don't care. So it's what you can provide them. It's what you can provide their family, and it's the kind of stability that they have a chance to win a championship. So again, you start with the history and you work with the young players, and now you can turn to and say, oh, and we also have some veteran leadership. We also have guys that have been there. We also have guys that have won in the postseason now. And we have guys that don't get rattled. And that's my spin. And look, you can put Baltimore up against Boston right now. And cool, Boston might have a slightly better, farm system. If somebody had the same amount of money right now, they're going to choose Baltimore over Boston. And if they chose Boston, it's because of the rich history. But from top to bottom, Baltimore is a better franchise, and it's in a better position than Boston is right now. Boston they're struggling to spend money. They look like they've made some moves this year. They haven't spent money in years. They've been there with the Orioles. They haven't really spent a whole lot. They let probably arguably one of the best players in that franchise go, and Mookie Betts. They touted a banana in front of their fans this year about being able to sign Juan Soto for $750 million and then taking their star center fielder and Jared Duran to arbitration over $500,000. That's not a good run organization, in my opinion. And if I'm on the outside looking in, I just watched the Orioles avoid arbitration with all but one player. For some reason, Jorge Mateo thinks he's worth $4+ million. But that's a conversation for another day. But you're looking at Boston withholding $500,000 from their star center fielder when they made you believe that they had $750 million for Juan Soto. Look, I get it's the principle. I get it. You don't want to set that precedence for other players down the road that, you're just going to cave to their demands. Completely get it. That's your star. Potentially probably the best player in your team. I get Rafael Devers is really good. Jared Duran is potentially the best player on that team. It's arguable. He's one or two. One of the two. And you're withholding $500,000 for him. That's a spit in the bucket for that owner. And for the team, to be honest. What kind of message does that send to free agents? Baltimore just went out there and just, okay. Yeah, they rushed him to $5 million. Okay. Ramon Urias, $3.2 million. Okay. Cool. I don't care. Cedric Mullins, 8.7 or 8.6. Cool. Ryan Mountcastle, 6.7. All right. Gave $10 million to Kittredge, $15 million to Charlie Morton, $8 million to Gary Sanchez. If I'm on the outside looking in, which one are you going to choose? The one penny pinching their star center fielder, or the one that's just kind of throwing money around right now? So that would be my pitch. And look, again, Berlin, that was a great question. I appreciate it. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I don't understand it at all. And listen, look, I might be a little biased. I'm a big O's fan, and I might be a little biased. I'm not buying that Boston is a better baseball team right now than the Orioles just because they got Walker Buehler and Garrett Crochet. I'm not buying it. Am I supposed to be afraid of 40-year-old Aroldis Chapman in the bullpen? Maybe a little bit. Not much. Am I supposed to be afraid of Walker Buehler, had a 5 ERA last year? Just a little bit. Not much. I could care less. We're going to hit him. We're going to hit him hard. Do I think Garrett Crochet has the same season that he just put up last year? Probably not. I don't think he does. I still think he's really good and he has a good season, but do I think he replicates what he just did? No. It's look, this is a good team, man. Did the Yankees get a whole lot better? No. Devin Williams is a good pickup. I'll give him that. Devin Williams is a good pickup. I excuse my ignorance. I forget his name. It's one of the Latin guys that they picked up for the bullpen. He's pretty decent too. Max Fried, pretty good. You face him maybe 3-4 times this year. Who cares? Who cares about 3 or 4 losses? You're probably going to end up winning 1 or 2 of them anyway. The Orioles play the Yankees really well. And let's not forget that these guys hit really good pitching really well. I don't know why. And sometimes it's even the shitty-ass punt lineups. They find a way to win. So, does Paul Goldschmidt scare me? No. They lost Gleyber Torres. They don't have an infield right now. They're trying to trade Oswaldo Cabrera, one of their better bench players. You know? I mean, Cody Bellinger, cool. He might hit 15 home runs this year, maybe 20 in that short porch. Probably going to hit 240. That's Cedric Mullins' numbers, and he's our 9-hitter. You know? The Yankees are a good team. I'm just not buying the hysteria that the Orioles are going to miss the playoffs because of what Boston and New York did. For a couple reasons. Baseball is not played on paper, and you don't win championships in December and January. You just don't. So, I don't know. Fernando Cruz is good too. He wasn't the guy I was thinking of, but he's decent. He's just all over the place sometimes. So he's either going to come and just pump the ball right by you, or it may come at your head. That's just what he is. He's literally all over the place. They think that they can fix him, and if they can, yeah, cool, that helps. Look, they're trying to stack their starting pitching and their bullpen up because they know they don't have any hitting at all. If they want to get to a point, if they score 3 runs a game, maybe 4. If they score 4 runs a game, they feel like they should win 90% of those games. And I'd probably agree with them. It's going to be a struggle for them to score 4 runs a game with that offense right now. Where the Orioles have, what do they average? Like 5.6, 5.7 over the last 2 years. And that was with an epic second half collapse. And they were still averaging over 5 runs a game in that second half. I mean, it's, I think the Orioles are in a good spot. I have no issues with the Orioles. Again, I might be a homer. I don't care. I just think the Orioles are a good baseball team, and they're going to give us a lot of good, exciting times this year. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, every AL. Well, I don't think Cleveland. I think Cleveland took a step back. They traded Josh Naylor. They were already struggling for any kind of offense. They still are trying to trade Lane Thomas. They don't want to pay nobody. They don't want to pay nobody at all. They got Shane Bieber to take a cut deal. Good for them. Their bullpen's still pretty good, but they're going to struggle to score runs, in my opinion. I think Detroit or Kansas City runs away with that division, and then the other one's going to be right on their heels. So that's 2 playoff teams right there. I don't think Cleveland makes the playoffs this year. Right now, we'll see. Right now, I don't see Cleveland making the playoffs. Could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But I'm a pencil in the Orioles and Yankees right now. So that's 4 playoff teams. I'm going to pencil in the Rangers to win the West right now. I think the Rangers are probably the best team in the AL right now. And I think maybe the Astros maybe squeak in, but we'll see. Do I think the Orioles are the favorites? They're not the favorites. There's a hysteria around New York. I mean, look, there should be. They were just in the ALCS. I just don't understand how you get to the ALCS and you have that much roster turnover. Like, willingly have that much roster turnover. It's going to be interesting to see how the new team gels together. They don't find an ace before spring training. It's a travesty. I've been saying it all year. I could care less about an ace. I may be in the minority about it. I could give two shits less about putting all my money into one player. It's the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And for me, you go and give a guy, even if you trade for him at this point, if you trade Kobe Mayo for a dude and he comes in and he's got to get Tommy John by like June, what good does that do you? Or we would have paid Max Fried, with $45 million for 8 years or whatever he got. And he gets hurt. Then what? So, yeah, what the O's are doing right now, in my opinion, beats having an ace. In my opinion. I said, I'm a very, very small minority about this. I'll take a 2s and 3s all day long. All day. Get me to the 6th inning with a lead. And you're going to win that game with a good bullpen. You can have an ace all you want. And he could go into the 8th inning. And if you don't score him an effing run, Corbin Burns against Kansas City Royals, it doesn't matter. But if you have a guy who can match him, and it's all Kansas City did, they just asked their guy to go out and go to the 6th inning. And what did they do? They turned it over to Ursig and the rest of that stout-ass bullpen, and they beat us. They beat us. Is Reagan's an ace? No. A good pitcher. He's number 2. He's a good pitcher. He's a Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez type. Good pitcher. They did it. Does Cleveland have an ace? No. They had absolutely no offense whatsoever. They didn't have an ace. Detroit had an ace. How'd that work out for them? They didn't win. They had a screwball. They didn't win. Dodgers didn't have an ace. They won a World Series. So an ace doesn't mean everything anymore. There's only maybe 10 of them in all of baseball anyway? Maybe. And we could probably selectively choose those. Game's changed a little bit, in my opinion. It's more bullpen focused. And yet when you kind of look at some of the stats, third time through the lineup anyway, and this is why I feel like the game's changed. Averages skyrocket. First and second time, you get like 230s, 240s average. Well, third time through the line, you're getting into the 260s and 270s. That's a bigger reason of why pitchers aren't throwing longer into games. They're just getting hit around a lot harder the longer that they're in the game. And is that endurance, or is that just the fact that they can sit on an iPad on the bench after they're at bat and see exactly how you attack them and exactly how far that ball moved and where that release point was, and know exactly how to attack you back next time they're in the box? Baseball's changed, and look, an ace helps, but if you put all your money into one guy, you still need offense. You still need a bullpen. So I'm all for not having an ace personally. They're nice to have, but I just grow it rather than buy it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. He's an ace for their team. Would I say that he's better? Is he a top 10 in baseball? Hell no. He's around the 20th range. He's ranked around what Grayson Rodriguez was, right around 20, 25. Good arm. He could win you some ball games. He's a 2. In reality, he just happens to be number 1 for them. And he's a really good pitcher, and that's all you need is a couple really good guys that can get you to the 6th inning and then turn it over to the guys that throw 100 miles an hour. Hot take: A's make the playoffs. I think they just miss. I'm talking like between a half game and 3 games. I think they just miss, but they're right there. I don't think they have the bullpen to withstand anything this year. The 2014 Orioles had 2s and 3s. Exactly. That's just me personally. I'm in a minority on this. I just don't see it nowadays that an ace, they're just nice to haves. You can still win with other players as long as everything around that ace is still good. That's where I'm at on that. If you don't agree, that's completely fine. It's completely fine. And an ace surely helps. I just feel like with this being the first season for the Orioles to spend a little bit of money. Look, they've plugged a lot of holes right now. And if they would have signed somebody lucrative, they don't plug half these holes. And then we're bitching that, they've got Blake Hunt as a backup catcher rather than Gary Sanchez. It just is what it is. Instagram story says the Angels. Good for him. Good for him. Nah, so look, you could have walked Witt. Whatever. He was still second. And there was a guy on first. They would have been double stealed. Corbin Burns was on the mound. It wouldn't have mattered at all. If you hit, Witt's hits meant nothing. They meant nothing. It only looked like Hyde's fault because it worked for KC, because we were doing nothing else. That's baseball. But you can't put Witt on just to put him on. He's not that's like it's an easy double or a triple. I thought the call was fine. You go after the guy. You had made him look pretty silly. He was last 2 weeks of the season, he was struggling at the plate. He didn't even hit the ball hard. I didn't care about that whatsoever. They just didn't hit. Set your change targets. You put Kramer. I'm not trading Kramer at all. Kramer's one of my favorite guys. I would trade McDermott. You got to keep Povich. You need to have some lefties. You don't have almost any lefties at all in the organization, the upper levels. You got Luis Gonzalez and Povich, Trevor Rogers, and I feel like I'm forgetting Luis De Leon. He's going to move up a little bit, but I don't know. An ace gives you 15 wins. Look, Grayson Rodriguez had 12? And then he got hurt. And he's not considered an ace by any means. An ace to me gives me 18 to 20 wins. And you just don't see it anymore. I'm going to pick it up here real quick. Most pitcher wins in baseball 2024. So Chris Sale 177, Screwball 192. That to me is a guy who gets a north of 180 innings. I would consider an ace, so to say. But Chris Sale and Screwball led the league with 18 wins. So nobody again hit 20 wins. Burns had 15. Pablo Lopez had 15, who's also available. Zach Wheeler had 16. Rendon had 16. And Rendon's not even any good, in my opinion. Rendon's a 3 or a 4. Seth Lugo had 16. Again, he's like a 3. Barrios had 16. He's like a 2. Screwball had 18 and Sale had 18. So those are your two aces. Framber Valdez, 15. He's probably a 2. Luis Gil, 15. He's probably a 3 or a 4. Amaga, 15. He's probably a 2. Dylan Cease, 14. He's ideally a 2. Kevin Gossman, 14. He's a 3. These guys are Zach Gallen, a 14. His numbers have fallen off the earth. George Kirby, 14. They're not aces. They're only winning. And wins aren't, I get it. The wins aren't the greatest stat to look at when it comes to pitching. But, you got to look at them. They're on paper for a reason. And high strikeouts are cool. I get it. I just don't see the value in an ace anymore. There's just not enough of them. So stack it up with a bunch of good players. You know, I mean, several teams have shown it. So I don't know. Does McCann sign somewhere? Maybe somewhere. Maybe somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe somewhere. That's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, at his age, like, what do they need? What do they need out of him, you know? Yeah, you'll get very similar. You get a better defense. You get better defense, you get better base running, you get better runners in scoring position. There's a lot that you get better of. Look, Santander right-handed wasn't very good at all. Santander left-handed just gave you a lot of home runs. So now you're just kind of getting the flip-flop. The Orioles were dog shit against left-handed pitching last year. They just don't see enough of it. But now you get O'Neill. You weigh the pro and the con here. Santander was good against lefties or against righties as a left-handed hitter. Ton is good against left-handed pitchers as a right-handed hitter. So that's a toss-up. That's a wash right there. You know, Santander wasn't that great from the right side against right-handed or left-handed pitching, and Ton is not very good against right-handed pitching. So, you know, it's a toss-up for me. I look at, you get a better defense, you get a better arm, you get better base running. But yeah, I mean, Santander stayed fairly healthy his entire career, and that's going to be something they're going to look at. But Ton is just as a hitter to me. The replacement is Heston Kjerstad. And I said it before, if the Orioles wanted Anthony Santander here, if they valued him, he would be here right now. They would have gave him a contract that he respected, and he would have took it. They haven't even offered him one. So I know we all want him. The Orioles don't, in my opinion, or he'd be here. And that's all we can talk about on that one. You know, it's just, but Tyler O'Neill is not here to replace Anthony Santander in any way, in my opinion. He's just here as a member of the team. Heston Kjerstad is here to replace Anthony Santander. It might be a reach, but you drafted the guy second overall for a reason. You put a lot of draft capital into him. You put a lot of time, developing him and stuff. So you can't. And he's 26 years old. You know, he's only 3 years younger than Anthony Santander. You got to rip the Band-Aid off eventually and move on for the guy that you invested a lot of money into. Kramer needs to shoot. He's a tour better. I don't know if he can be like showing that he's a 2. But he certainly has the capable of just giving you some quality outings. I mean, if he stays a sub-4 ERA, I personally think, I don't know what 3 are going to do, but I think 3 guys in the Orioles starting staff are going to be a sub-4 ERA this year, which is good in my opinion. That's a good season as long as you have 1 or 2 more bullpen pieces that are going to make them a little bit better. A little bit better. White Sox over under 75 wins this year. I'm going to go under. Just because they have a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. I don't think it's ready to make that jump just yet. I think next year they go north of 75 though. They got to get their pitching right. They got the talent. Talent's just going to have to learn. That's all that is. That is all that is. But my throat is starting to hurt. I'm starting to get sick, guys. I am going to jump off. 420 people are watching right now. Appreciate every single one of you. I got 8 on YouTube and 412 on Twitter. And if you guys over on Twitter are bored and you like some long-form content and more breakdowns like this, head on over to YouTube, man. Same exact panhandle, Pigtown Sports. Drop a sub over there. I'm at 822. I'm trying to grow this thing. And same for guys on YouTube. If you're into the Twitter world, come on over to Twitter. I go probably more haywire than I should on stupid random stats about the Orioles and Ravens. But the same thing. It's at Pigtown Sports. So I'm going to hop on off here tonight. I appreciate every single one of you beautiful souls. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Stay warm. It's cold as shit. And we'll give a little rest in peace to Brian Mattis, former Orioles pitcher, 4th overall, and tragically lost his life at 37 years old this week. He was one of the mainstays in the bullpen in the 2010-ish area, 2012, 14s. You get this guy and rest his soul. Super chat. I ain't worried about them. Cubs being 2.5 million, been talking about, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, yeah, but they don't know what they got either, right? They didn't get a chance to watch this guy play every day. That's always it. That's hard coming in to a new team. It really doesn't know anything about you. And that kind of made me wonder. And now we've seen a lot of these arbitration numbers of who's getting traded, who can actually afford who. Like Michael King is taking the Padres to the brinks. He wants his money. The Padres just can't afford it, man. They got to pay Luis Arraez $14 million. They can't afford nothing. So it'd be interesting to see who gets traded and how desperate teams are. But I'm going to hop on off. Again, thank every single one of you guys, and I will catch you